The forthcoming historical action disaster epic Pompeii. It stars Kit Harington, who is with us. Kit, hello. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Hello, Simon. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How does that feel? Are you sitting there listening to the dialogue? I don't know if you've heard it as a piece of dialogue before. How did that little clip sound to you, sir?
I haven't. I've never actually heard a movie or TV thing as a piece of dialogue before. It's kind of strange.
So this is an interesting conversation because the thing that people always complain about to us is spoilers. Okay, they complain that sort of give away what happened, but we kind of.
Can I just say I haven't seen the film, so don't tell me what happens.
Well, but I
will be really cross if I find out what happens in Pompeii.
Okay, well let's Kit, over to you. Explain. Tell us tell us everything that we can know about Pompeii. Over to you.
I don't want to spoil it for you, Mark. The volcano does go off.
Oh, that's it. I'm going.
Oh, I know. But hopefully that we kind of trick the audience into forgetting it's going to go off halfway through the movie. Basically, it follows a gladiator who gets taken from Britannia to Pompeii to fight. In Pompeii, in those days, it's sort of Las Vegas of the Roman world, and he gets taken there, and his family have been slaughtered by the Romans, and in the process of this he meets a young woman and they fall in love, but they're from different class systems. You know, they can't really be together until the volcano goes off, which sort of levels the playing field. And there's a lot of
literally
levels the playing field. There's a lot of great action sequences and wonderful CGI and 3D that happens within the movie.
And that's true. And this, you're absolutely right. There was a point where I'd forgotten that the volcano was going to go off.
Hang on, I'm going to be clear about this. You went to see a movie called Pompeii in 3D, and you forgot that a volcano was going to go off.
I know, but I'm watching.
Did you see Krakatoa east of Java and forget?
It's because I was lost in the story which Kit and his friends were portraying. There's a lot of fighting, a lot of gladiator stuff. There's a love story, and there's Kiefer Sutherland being a camp aristocratic English Roman. Which is fantastic, by the way.
When you watch Titanic, did you have the sense that something bad might happen?
Anyway, so I did. Funny, there was a little thing going on. So, but how much CGI is there actually on this kit? Because it looks, some of the explosions, you know, when you're running down the street, or if you're in a chariot or on a horse, it looks as though that's actually happening. So, how much? Obviously, the mountain is CGI, I imagine, but how much is CGI and how much is real?
Do you know what? More is real than you would think. Actually, we did it. It was all filmed in Toronto, in huge big studio sets. And so they built a lot of streets. They built a lot of sets within this studio. And for the bits post explosion, there were big bits of green screen filled in the background, but quite a lot of it was quite visceral and real, and I like that when you're not just in a big green box as an actor. That's the hardest thing you can do, I think. So they tried to help us out on that level, and I think it brings a realism to the movie for audiences as well. But obviously there was a lot of CGI, and there's big wide shots which are quite impressive CGI shots, which I wasn't sometimes part of even.
No, am I right in saying? I mean, Game of Thrones is clearly this huge show for you, where you played Jon Snow. Nice idea, by the way, to get Jon Snow to interview you for Channel 4 News. I think that's a real nice twist. Very good. But I wonder if it's true that Paul Anderson, the director, actually watched Game of Thrones. Like he says, I saw a quote that he'd seen like the first 2 series. He watched it in 48 hours, and out of everybody, he thought that you were the star, and that's why he picked you for this movie. Is that true, or is that just sort of a little bit of fluff?
No, that's what he. When we had a meeting, we met in LA, and he said that exact same thing to me. He kind of said, "I want you to be the lead in this movie, and I've seen you in Thrones, and I think you are the person that should play this part." And they're not dissimilar parts, which is you can see why he kind of wanted Milo to be that. He's a silent, brooding type. He's sort of akin to Jon Snow. So no, I do believe that Paul watched it and liked me in it, hopefully. So I think that's what brought me to his attention, definitely. And as for Jon Snow interviewing me this morning, I've never been more nervous in my entire life. It was nerve-wracking.
Right. And did he ask you particularly difficult questions?
No, he was lovely. He was really lovely.
But the step up, Kit, from being one of the stars in a huge TV series to being the leading man in a huge blockbuster, that must have been more scary than actually being interviewed by Jon Snow, I'd have thought.
It really wasn't. No, I kind of have a naivety coming into these things. I sort of come in and just see it as a job. I never see it as a leading role in a massive, a big Hollywood budget movie. I just don't. I come into it as an actor playing a role. And it's only at this part where it's coming out and I'm doing the publicity that I suddenly realise that it is a big movie and I am the lead, and suddenly I'm on a London bus. And it's only then that it kind of hits what it... But at the time, it's not... maybe it's bad that I'm naive in that way, but I don't like looking at the full scope of it.
I just had to say that when Kit says suddenly I'm on a London bus, he doesn't mean like you and I would mean suddenly I'm on a London bus. He means suddenly I'm on the side of a London bus. But also, I mean, that thing about the step up, because the interesting thing with Game of Thrones, as anybody who's been in Belfast would know, I mean, if you get off an aeroplane in Belfast, everyone, there's just taxis are everywhere. There's a Game of Thrones. I mean, it's like the whole of the film industry around has been completely revolutionised by that presence. I mean, it is huge, isn't it? It's absolutely huge.
It is, yeah, and quite weirdly, the first 2 seasons, no one in Belfast knew who we were or what was going on, and then someone must have watched it, and word spread, and then we came back for the 3rd season, and suddenly there were Game of Thrones tours, there were, the people were stopping us in the street, there were people waiting outside the hotel, it suddenly blew up over there. But as far as what it's brought to Northern Ireland film industry, it's great. We keep losing some of our crew, some of our Northern Irish crew, because they're jumping onto other stuff which is coming into Belfast, and it's a really thriving film community there now.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is thriving, and certainly Game of Thrones has added to that. Whilst you were over there, I don't suppose you ever got a chance to see Good Vibrations, the best film to come out of Northern Ireland in the last, best film to come out anywhere recently.
I still haven't seen it. I saw you review it.
You must see it. You must see it. It is fantastic.
Yes, I've got to. It's one of the ones on the list.
Compare the fight sequences and action set pieces in Game of Thrones with what you have to do for Pompeii.
Much on a much greater scale, actually. In Thrones, I do, especially this season, actually, big fight scenes, but they're, I maybe kind of kill 4 people a season at max. In Pompeii, I think the count was 41.
Really?
So
frankly, it doesn't matter because the lava's going to get him eventually anyway, isn't it?
Oh, and there we go, spoiling the plot again.
Well,
thanks for that, Simon Mayo. That's just great.
Sorry. 41's a pretty impressive tally.
Yeah, I got someone to count it for me. Apparently, it was 41.
But did you arrive thinking, I can do this? I can ride horses, I can wave an axe, and I can stab with a sword if I need to, because it does look as though they have stepped it up a bit.
I got there with a certain ego, a certain confidence about what I could do, and it was quickly dashed. They suddenly gave me 2 swords, so I wasn't fighting one-handed, I was fighting two-handed, and that's a whole new technique for me. We had to learn, we learned 50, 60 fights over the process of this movie, and then used about 12 of them, 12 big set pieces, because Paul, the director, would come in and say, that's not how I want it to be, relearn it, do another one. And during that, I actually came back to Game of Thrones Season 4 a much, much more adept sword fighter than I had left in Season 3, and Pompeii aided that massively, because it's all about how quickly you can pick up a fight, and also how real you can make the intention of throwing a sword look. And I feel like I've come a long way, actually, since doing this film.
How do you make throwing a sword look intentional?
Well, you learn it, and you learn it very slowly, and then it gets very, very quick, and it gets far too slick, and actually you then have to bring it back, and it's all about, in each beat, it not looking like you're clacking sticks together, that you're actually on one sword throw thinking about where the next one's going to land, so you're thinking one beat ahead of the next sword thrust, and if you're doing that, it looks like you're thinking within a fight, and it becomes a dialogue. It does become a movement dialogue. It's a dance, and I love it. I love the sword fighting. I love the action sequences.
And a question from listener Ian Richards, long-time listener, both excited and delighted to hear Kit's on the programme. I taught Kit history and I coached his rugby team. This is Ian Richards at the Chantry School. Can you ask him, did training with Luke Langham every week help him prepare in any way for his gladiatorial role? The school is so proud of Kit, and when can he come and visit us?
Oh, that's brilliant, Mr. Richards. Yeah, he did teach me rugby. Luke Langham broke my foot.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
so
Luke.
Luke Langham was a tough guy. I've always been quite short, but he was a big guy. I got tackled hard by him a few times. Yeah, good old Mr. Richards. I'm going to come back soon, I promise.
Now, you're in the forthcoming big screen adaptation of Spooks and Testament of Youth. But are you doing Spooks at the moment? I'm
currently in the middle of filming Spooks, yes.
Can you tell us anything about that in the remaining 30 seconds we have?
It's incredibly exciting for me because I've stepped into the 21st century. I'm holding a gun.
Yes.
But it's, again, I'm not going to give any plots away. But Peter Firth, who played Harry, is returning. We've got Jennifer Ealey in it. A wonderful actress called Tuppence Middleton is joining the cast. I'm new to it. I never actually watched Spooks, but it's a thrilling piece to be doing in this day and age. What with post-Snowden and WikiLeaks, it's an interesting genre to be stepping into.
Presumably there is a horse involved somewhere, because War Horse, that was you, Game of Thrones, that's you, and obviously Pompeii, a very important horse.
Are you suggesting no role accepted unless there's a horse? I
think that might be part of Kit's idea, yes. Are there any horses involved in Spooks?
It's within my contract that I have to have a horse somewhere within the film.
Can I just tell you, Simon, you are veering dangerously close to Hugh Grant in Notting Hill territory, interviewing Julie Roberts, in which he asks her, are there any horses in this film? And she says no. And he says, why? And she says, because it's set in space.
But you do have a thing with horses.
Hounds?
That's right, exactly.
That's the thing. Are there any hounds? Our readers are interested in both species.
You've studied the movie, you know all the words.
Everybody knows Notting Hill off by heart.
Anyway, Kit, it's fantastic to have you on the show. Thank you very much indeed, and all the best for Pompeii, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again when Spooks comes out. Thanks, Kit.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.